D.I.Y guitar pedals. Alright, everyone. So, starting out, you're going to need to find some good online resources to start doing research. One really good online research starting point is madbeanguitarpedals.com. Start here. You'll find a really good online forum. They have a rather active online community. Lots of people who have done these projects and have opinions on them and who will happily share them with you. And you'll go to their tutorials page afterwards. The tutorials page will show you something really important, which is your offboard wiring after you wire up your circuit board, how to actually hook it up to your pedal afterwards. This is something I wasn't super aware of getting into it, and they have some really good physical wiring diagrams, less leaning towards the electrical schematics, which can be harder to read. From there, look at their tutorials, check it out. They're sorted by type of effect, which is super important. They also grade the difficulty of the project itself, which I find super useful. So you're not going to dive into something outside of your skill set. Going forward, you'll see the schematics. This isn't super important. We'll touch on them later. They seem really intimidating, but they're not. I'll show you how to look at these basic symbols and sort of decipher what's inside. From there, you can go to their zip file, which will give you the circuit board layout. Less important, more so if you're going to buy a pre-built board. They'll give you a bill of materials, which is very important. This will let you buy the correct parts and let you know what R1 stands for if you're looking at a schematic. And it will give you a buy list so you can buy the proper parts, as well as a hole pattern so you know where to drill your holes when you're drilling them into your housing. And then you go to their store page. These are kits that you can purchase from MadBean. They're well done. They're made by the community and by other people who will also be building kits such as yourself. The second resource to go to, Mammoth Pedals or Mammoth Electronics. They huge resources as far as parts go. They have all the parts that you need to buy if you're going to buy, say, open a schematic, open your buy list like we just looked at. Purchase them from Mammoth Electronics. They're great. They have a lot of kits as well. You can just go there, find something you're interested in, click buy. You'll get the whole bill of materials, housing, everything else. If you want to do a real DIY build, you can go here, go to your housings. You'll be able to buy the housing. You'll be able to select a hole pattern if you want it pre-drilled for you, or you could drill them yourself, put the holes in, layout however you'd like it to go, as well as choose from a selection of different finishes, colors, etc., as well as different parts. Here's potentiometers we're looking at right now. You can really just go here to get everything you'll need. You can go to this store and find proto boards, wire, breadboards for doing practice layouts. If you don't want to go straight to soldering onto raw board, you can go here, you get a breadboard, do a test setup, which is important. For the pedal that I built myself, it was based on an MXR Distortion Plus. I found an article online from Brian Wampler of Flex Wampler Guitar Pedals, and he did a fantastic layout that included the base circuit from the original pedal and then what he would do to modify that circuit. And that's what I did as my first guitar pedal, which he's just super knowledgeable. He knows a lot. Going forward, looking into schematics, they're intimidating. So here's a breakdown of the symbols. The first will be the capacitor. The capacitor is super important as far as tone goes, and here are some examples of what they'll look like. Their polarity sometimes matters, sometimes doesn't. Look at the buy list and do your research, so you'll know if you need to orient it a certain way, one way or the other, while you're soldering it in place. The next is going to end up being your resistors. Resistors don't matter as far as polarity, whether you wire facing one way or the other way. They're going to look like this. The stripes have a meaning. They'll tell you their value of the component itself. Plenty of calculators and apps online. You can figure it out. Just make sure you buy the right one. The next is the diode. The diode, it is important which way you wire it. Polarity matters in this case. So make sure that you hook it up the right way. On top, I drew the schematic symbol. On bottom, this is the physical component, how it looks, so you can translate it from schematic to physical component and know which way you're actually hooking it up. Germanium diodes on the right. LEDs are diode, and the longer lead will be the positive lead when you're hooking them up. So just be careful, wire them the right way, and you'll be good. It's not too difficult. Potentiometers. They are the knobs on the guitar pedal. It matters which way you wire them. Look at your schematic. Do some article searching online to figure out which way you want to wire it up. There's a few different types, logarithmic and the such. Just buy whatever's on the buy list. You'll be good to go. Op amps. Op amps are little integrated circuits. It does matter which way you hook them up. They look like a little computer chip. They're not too hard as long as you go by the diagram, look at your schematic, see which way you should hook it up. There's usually a little dot or indentation telling you which one is pin 1, and then it goes around anti-clockwise the way I'm drawing out right now. They're important. They have a lot to do with your tone and how your different effects will sound. SPST, schematic wise, this is what your switch is. All it is a little switch. Flick it up, it's on. Flick it down, it's off. It doesn't matter which way you wire it at all, as long as you know when you put it in your pedal which way is on, and that's just so up is on, down is off. They're super easy. So now we'll go over a simple schematic. Here's an example of how to wire an LED light. So you flick a switch up, LED turns on, down, LED turns off. This is more so for how to read. Here's an example of the symbols we just went over, how they link together, how you can read them. Little triangle on the right means ground, which will be the black wire or a minus symbol if you're looking at a schematic. And yeah, here we go. It will just be a quick soldering tutorial. Get any soldering iron you want from the hardware store. I'm using a Heiko. You could use a Weller. You could use whatever's on the shelf. The more expensive, the better. Cheap ones, you'll find your tips tend to wear out faster. The more expensive ones will have, temperature control. The tips will last a little bit longer. It's not super important. Just do whatever you can get. Here, what we're going over is pre-tin your wires and the leads on your components. This just means get a little bit of the solder wire. I use some with flux or resin core on it already. And this just makes your life way easier moving forward. To pre-tin or tinning your wires just means put a little bit of that wire on the wire they're going to solder to, so that when you go to actually hook it up to the board, there's some material on it already to bond to that surface, and you're not really making your life a little bit harder in the future. Right here, we're looking at a 9-volt battery hookup. Making guitar pedals, don't use 9-volt batteries. This is just for the LED example. I'm just showing you how to put some tin on your wires, put some solder on your wires, and really make everything much easier moving forward. This green thing is called a proto board. It's just a bunch of holes. And you're going to take your wires with the solder already on them, stick them in that hole, and just touch your iron to that hole, fill it with solder. Don't go overboard. Use the least you can to completely fill that hole with the wire going through it with solder. If you're really interested in going into how to do this and how the industry expects things to be made, if you open any electronic component, it will be built to an IPC 610 standard, whether that's D or F or whatever it is today. Google IPC 610. That's just how they make stuff. As far as quality wise, when they're soldering, how much sticks through the bottom of the board, how well should the joint really be filled, all that fun stuff. Right now, we're just hooking up our red wire to the switch. It doesn't matter whether it's the red wire, the black wire, whatever color you like. We're just going to touch the wire to the component and just let that solder melt a little bit. Hold it in place until it feels firm, and you're good to go. That's it. That's all there is to it. Super easy. We're going to put those. Again, these leads are pre-tinned into the proto board and just hook them up to that 9-volt battery connector that we did. Fold the leads over, and then we're going to take our soldering iron, put a little bit of solder on the tip, pre-tinning again, and solder those wires together, making sure we have a good connection. These little the clampy bits that you see me using, those are called helping hands. Super useful. You don't need them, but they'll make your life a whole lot simpler if this is something that you intend on doing at least even a few times in the future. They hold your work in place. Sometimes you're doing stuff and you go, oh man, I wish I had a third hand. This is your third hand, so I do recommend getting them. They're not super expensive. I've got a few different types. They're just great. So what we're looking at here is I soldered the single position throw switch SPST to the positive side. If you're looking at schematic, you'll see a little plus, 9-volt plus, or in, with the red wire facing in, negative wire towards the outside of the symbol. So everything flows positive to negative. Now I just placed a resistor. Again, the orientation doesn't matter which end you solder to your switch. Doesn't really matter. You just put it in your board, bend the leads out. That just helps hold it in place as you're soldering. And just make sure you fill those holes with solder, the holes in the proto board, or whatever your medium is. Now we're going to fold those over to the wires from the switch and just solder them together, making sure we have a good connection and making sure that our solder isn't really touching anything else, and trimming that excess lead wire off from the resistor. This is going to help us from accidentally touching the case or any other components that we could have on our board. Now we're going to hook our LED switch, our LED up. An LED is a diode itself. Orientation does matter. The longer lead is the positive side. The shorter lead is the negative side. So we're going to hook it up with our longer lead facing the resistor. So we're going to touch, or when we solder, we're going to solder the longer lead, the positive lead, to the other end of the resistor that we haven't trimmed off yet, that we haven't soldered yet. And this is going to make sure that when we flip the switch, bright light turns on. It's great. You can get any color you want: red, yellow, blue, green. There's just so many options. It's LEDs are just great. Things look cooler with LEDs. Things sound better with LEDs. LEDs just make your life better. So we're gonna solder the LED to the resistor. We're going to take the other lead off the LED and solder that to the other side of the single position throw switch. And then after that, we're going to trim the leads. Again, that's just making sure that there's no wires poking out, to make sure that we make connections we don't want to make, and it makes everything look much cleaner. And then we're done. That's really it. Now, when you're doing a guitar pedal, again, this is a sample of a circuit for turning on an LED, making your pedals moving forward. Really just do this a whole bunch. Look your schematic, reference the quick reference guide I put beforehand, showing you here's the symbol, here's whether the polarity matters, and you're good to go. Blue LED, bing, boom, bang, done. That's it. It's easy as that, guys. That's, there's no reason not to build your own pedals. They sound great, and they're a talking piece if anyone sees it. do it a whole bunch, and you end up with a rat's nest sort of like this by housing a little bit bigger than you think you're gonna need, because those wires do take up a lot of space. If you're buying a pre-made circuit board, the size should be fine. It's just that the wires take up a lot of space on a proto board. Now, when screwing your back plate to the housing, you're going to partially screw in each of the screws, doing opposite screws first and working counterclockwise. And then once all the screws are in, then you tighten your screws up. This just makes sure that you've it's just the right way to do it. If you work in industry anywhere you're putting stuff together, this is just the proper way to assemble stuff. So here is my pedal, DIY pedal, versus the MXR Distortion Plus that I based it from. I had my sister paint this pedal with banana because bananas are just great. And then here we go. Thank you so much for watching. I really just threw this together after completing that. That was my first pedal build, and I wanted to get together all the information I wish I had starting out and try to save someone else a little bit of the research time up front before they dive into making their own pedal. That was an MXR Distortion Plus from the 80s. My friend lent it to me. I copied the circuit, incorporated the mods per Brian Wampler, who's a fantastic guitar pedal builder and designer, and you heard that going through a Victory V40 Deluxe. And that is all. Thank you so much. I'm Brandon. You're awesome. Have a great one.